Good morning, friends. Today, I am going to discuss the novel in English literature, its meaning, its important features, and especially its development from the early period to the modern age. The novel is one of the most popular forms of literature today. It tells a long fictional story through characters, events, dialogue, and description. A novel may deal with love, society, politics, history, morality, psychology, or ordinary human life. What is a novel? The word novel comes from the Italian word novella, meaning a new or little story. A novel is a long fictional prose narrative that presents human life and experience through characters and events. In simple words, a novel is a long prose story about human life and society. Unlike a short story, a novel normally has greater length and can develop many characters, events, situations, and themes. Some important elements of a novel are plot. Plot means the sequence of events in the story. Second one is characters. Characters means the people who take part in the story. The third one is setting. Setting means the time and place of the story. Fourth is theme. Theme means the central idea or subject. And the fifth one is narration. Narration means the way the story is told. Six, dialogue. Dialogue means conversations between characters. Seven, point of view. Point of view means the perspective from which the story is narrated. Number 8, style. Style means the writer's particular way of using language. Now let's understand how the English novel developed. Early development of the novel. The English novel did not suddenly appear in the 18th century. It developed gradually from earlier forms of storytelling. In the medieval period, England had romances, legends, chronicles, and tales. These works often contained adventure, love, heroic actions, and supernatural events. One important early work is Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. It is a novel, but its realistic characters and stories contributed to the development of later English fiction. During the Renaissance, prose fiction became more popular. John Lyly's Euphrates, published in 1578, is an important prose work. Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia is another significant work of prose fiction. However, these works were still different from the modern novel. Rise of the novel in the 18th century. The 18th century is generally regarded as the great age of the rise of English novel. There were several reasons for this development. First, literacy was increasing, more people were able to read. Second, the middle class was growing. Middle class readers wanted stories about ordinary human life rather than only stories about kings and heroes. Third, the printing industry developed rapidly, making books more available. Finally, writers began to focus on realistic characters, everyday life, society, and individual experience. Now, I'm going to tell about Daniel Defoe. Daniel Defoe is often considered one of the pioneers of the English novel. His famous novel, Robinson Crusoe, was published in 1719. It tells the story of a man who is stranded on a deserted island. The novel presents individualism, survival, hard work, and practical intelligence. Defoe's other work is Mole Planters. Now I am going to discuss another novelist, Samuel Richardson. Samuel Richardson gave a new direction to the English novel. His famous novel, Pamela, was published in 1740. It is written mainly through letters, so it is called an epistolary novel. His other major novel is Clarissa. Richardson concentrated on the inner feelings, emotions, and moral problems of his characters. Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding is another great name in the development of the English novel. His famous novel, Joseph Andrews, was published in 1742. His masterpiece, Tom Jones, appeared in 1749. Fielding used humor, satire, realistic characters, and an omniscient narrator. He is often called the father of the English novel, although the development of the novel was actually the result of the contributions of many writers. Tobias Smollett is another great novelist. He developed the tradition of the picaresque novel. His important work include Roderick Random is very important. His novels contain adventure, humor, travel, and colorful characters. The novel in the 18th century. The late 18th century saw the development of the Gothic novel. The Gothic novel usually contains mystery, terror, supernatural elements, old castles, secrets, and frightening situations. Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto, published in 1764, is generally considered the first Gothic novel. Later, Anne Radcliffe became an important Gothic novelist. Her famous novel, The Mysteries of Udolpho, was published in 1794. The Gothic tradition later influenced writers such as Mary Shelley and many modern writers. Now, I'm going to tell about Jane Austen, who wrote the novel of Manners. In the early 19th century, Jane Austen brought great refinement to the English novel. Major novels include Sense and Sensibility, published in 1811, Pride and Prejudice, published in 1813, Mansfield Park, published in 1814, Emma, published in 1815, Northanger Abbey, published in 1817, and Persuasion, published in 1817. Austen is famous for her novel of manners. She presents middle class and upper class society, marriage, family relationships, social manners, and women's position. Her writing is marked by irony, humor, realism, and careful characterization. Now, I am going to tell about the Victorian novel. The Victorian age produced some of the greatest English novelists. The Victorian novel became a powerful instrument for examining society. Charles Dickens was one of them. He is perhaps the most famous Victorian novelist. His major novels include Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, Great Expectations, Hard Times, A Tale of Two Cities, and Bleak House. Dickens presented poverty, child labor, education, prisons, industrial society, and social injustice. The another great novelist is William Makepeace Thackeray. Thackeray is famous for his novel Vanity Fair. He used satire to expose the weaknesses and hypocrisy of Victorian society. Then comes the Bronte sisters, and in Bronte sisters, there are three sisters who were writing novels at that time. Number one is Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre. very important novel of the age. Then there is Emily Bronte, who wrote Wuthering Heights. It is also a very famous novel of the Victorian age. And the last one is Anne Bronte, who wrote The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. The Bronte novels combine love, passion, individual freedom, and social restrictions, as well as psychological depth of the age. Then comes George Eliot. George Eliot, whose real name was Mary Ann Evans, was another major Victorian novelist. Her important novels include Adam Bede, The Mill on the Floss, Silas Marner, and Middlemarch. She is known for realism, moral analysis, psychology, and social observation. The modern novel. In the 20th century, the novel changed significantly. Modern writers were less interested in simply telling a story from beginning to end. They became interested in the inner world of the human mind. Modern novels often use stream of consciousness, interior monologue, fragmentary structure, multiple points of view, psychological analysis, symbolism, and non-linear narration. Important modern novelists include James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, D. H. Lawrence, E. M. Forster, Joseph Conrad, and William Faulkner. James Joyce. Joyce's Ulysses is one of the most important modernist novels. He experimented with language, structure, and stream of consciousness technique. Then there is Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf's novels include Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. She focuses strongly on human consciousness, memory, time, and inner experience. Then there is Joseph Conrad, who wrote The Heart of Darkness. The novel explores colonialism, civilization, darkness, and human psychology. Then, the postmodern novel. After the Second World War, the novel became even more experimental. Postmodern novelists often questioned traditional ideas of truth, reality, history, and identity. They used irony, parody, fragmentation, metafiction, multiple narratives, and intertextuality. Important postmodern novelists include Salman Rushdie and Italo Calvino. Now, I am going to tell about Indian English novel. The English novel also developed strongly in India. Three important early Indian English novelists are Mulk Raj Anand, R. K. Narayan, and Raja Rao. Mulk Raj Anand wrote about poverty, caste, exploitation, and social inequality. His famous novel is Untouchable, that was published in 1935. R. K. Narayan created the fictional South Indian town of Malgudi. His important novels include Swami and Friends, The Guide, and The Bachelor of Arts. Kanthapura by Raja Rao presents Indian rural life and the influence of the freedom movement. Later Indian English novelists such as Salman Rushdie, Amitabh Ghosh, Arundhati Roy, Bikram Seth expanded the scope of Indian English fiction. Now, I come to the conclusion. So, students, we can say that the English novel has passed through a long process of development. It moved from romance and adventure to realism, then to social criticism, psychological exploration, and finally to modern and postmodern experimentation. The 18th century established the English novel as an important literary genre. The 19th century developed realism and social criticism, while the 20th century introduced psychological and experimental techniques. The novel remains important because it gives us a detailed picture of human life, society, emotions, relationships, problems, and dreams. In simple words, the history of the English novel is also the history of changing human society and human consciousness. Thank you.